So the latest one is the arrest, detention of lawyer and activist Dong Samuel Luak and chairman of the SPLM in opposition, Agri Idri, both allegedly arrested in different parts of Nairobi over the last 2 days. Let's now bring in researcher at the Human Rights Watch, Jonathan Pednault, joining us live from Oslo in Norway via Skype. Good afternoon, sir. And what is your reaction to the latest rounds of arrest of South Sudanese opposition leaders here in Nairobi?
Good afternoon. Yes, indeed, we're quite concerned about the whereabouts and the safety of Mr. Dong Samuel, who disappeared on January 23rd. We've received very good information that he was being held by the Kenyan police, and we are concerned that the Kenyan authorities may decide to unlawfully deport him back to South Sudan, as they did with the former opposition spokesperson James Gadet in November of last year.
What exactly do you call unlawful deportation from where you stand?
Well, Mr. Dong Samuel is considered a refugee, has refugee papers, and according to both the Kenyan law and the 1951 Refugee Convention, those are international instruments, there is a prohibition to return a refugee in any way whatsoever if there are concerns that his life or freedom could be threatened. Now, what happened in the case of Mr. Gadet is that upon arrival in Juba, he was arrested and taken into national security custody, where he has been held without trial or charges incommunicado for the past 2 months, or 3 months, in fact. So there are concerns that in the case of Mr. Samuel, the same fate may await him, or perhaps even worse, given his quite active and vocal activism in favor of human rights and against corruption in South Sudan.
So I know you speak from a human rights approach, but where does Kenya draw the line in terms? There have been allegations of South Sudanese politicians playing politics of South Sudan here in Nairobi, and the Kenyan government may be getting tired of that. Where does the Kenyan government draw the line?
Well, in terms of international law, refugees have a right to engage in peaceful political activities. I mean, a lot of the people who have fled South Sudan because of politics, because they were engaged in politics and denounced human rights abuses or a particular situation in their home country, a home country that does not respect the rule of law, as has been demonstrated over the past 3 years through multiple abuses by both government and opposition forces. Now, in the case of Mr. Samuel, he fled to Kenya to seek safety, and the Kenyan, Kenya has recognized him as a refugee, and we are concerned that now Kenya will flout its own rules with regards to refugees by deporting someone who has been active in politics in a peaceful manner, as is allowed by the Refugee Convention and refugee norms internationally.
So Mr. Samuel is a refugee from what you're telling us. What about the other gentleman, the chairman of the SPLM in opposition, Agri Idri, that is a politician?
Unfortunately, we have less information about his case. It is true that he disappeared also yesterday, was last seen yesterday morning. We have, unfortunately, less information about his current status in Kenya, whether he was recognized as a refugee or not. As such, I can't quite comment on his specific case.
What do you advise the Kenyan government to do at this time? The two gentlemen have been rounded up. They haven't been deported from what we know so far. What would you advise the Kenyan government to do?
Well, certainly we ask the Kenyan government to protect all refugees, including those two, well, at least Mr. Samuel. There are grave concerns that Mr. Samuel will be mistreated, perhaps tortured upon return to South Sudan. Mr. Samuel has been collaborating with multiple human rights organizations, trying to shed the light on a horrible situation in South Sudan. He's someone who's very brave, someone who has a lot of courage, and we would advise the Kenyan government to respect its own law and respect international law and release Mr. Samuel from custody.
All right, many thanks. We have been talking to Jonathan Pednault, a researcher at Human Rights Watch, of course, concerning that developing story, which we are keeping an eye on here on Worldview. Shortly, we shall be speaking to lawyer Ed